Right now, there are people in your life who have never read a single book on persuasion, and yet, somehow, they always get what they want. You say yes before you even realize you're doing it. You follow rules you never agreed to. You trust people you've barely met. That's not an accident. The techniques being used on you today were perfected thousands of years ago. By pharaohs, by Roman emperors, by priests who wrote laws in the name of gods. These people didn't have psychology degrees, but they understood something about human behavior that most people still haven't figured out, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here's the thing I want you to hold on to for this entire video. Every compliance trick that works on you today has a 3,000-year-old ancestor. By the end, I'm going to show you exactly what that ancestor looks like, and why the fact that you're watching this video right now is not as coincidental as you think. Let's start with a simple idea. People don't follow power, they follow the story of power. When Ramesses II fought the Battle of Kadesh around 1274 BCE, the historical record shows it ended in a stalemate. Neither side won decisively. But what did Ramesses do? He commissioned massive stone carvings, some of the largest in the ancient world, depicting himself as an unstoppable warrior god, single-handedly crushing thousands of enemies. That story got carved into the walls of temples across Egypt. It got repeated in songs and ceremonies in every city his people lived in. The population never questioned it. Why would they? The king's version of events was literally written in stone. This is ancient mind control techniques at their most raw. You control the narrative, you control the population. And here's the terrifying part, it still works exactly the same way today. But here's where things get interesting. Compliance psychology tells us that human beings are meaning-seeking creatures before they are rational ones. We don't evaluate information first and feel things second. We feel first. Logic catches up later, if it shows up at all. Ancient rulers understood this intuitively. They didn't try to explain why you should listen to them. They gave you a story that made listening feel like the only natural choice. Think about what the pharaoh represented to an average Egyptian farmer. Not just a king, a living god. The literal son of Ra, the person whose mood determined whether the Nile flooded on schedule. That's not a political leader. That's someone whose authority is woven into the fabric of the universe itself. When your obedience is framed as a cosmic duty, compliance psychology barely has to work at all. The story has already done the job, and this is where most people make a mistake. Most people picture the Roman Empire and immediately think of legions, swords, conquest, and yes, the military was real. But the Roman propaganda machine is what actually kept 50 million people in line across 3 continents. Roman emperors put their face on every single coin in circulation. Think about that for a second. Every time a merchant made a transaction, every time a farmer bought seed, every time a soldier was paid, they held the emperor's face in their hand. That image went into millions of pockets thousands of times a day. This is the repetition persuasion technique in its purest form. You don't have to convince someone. You just have to become so familiar that questioning you feels strange. Psychologists today call this the mere exposure effect. The more we see something, the more we trust it. The Romans didn't just repeat the emperor's face, they repeated his titles. Augustus, the Sacred One, Pater Patriae, Father of the Fatherland. These weren't just honorifics. They were psychological anchors, repeated in speeches, inscribed on monuments, echoed in public rituals until they felt like facts. Now this next part might surprise you. Here's a scenario. You walk into a new city and you see 2 restaurants. One has a line out the door, one is empty. You've never tasted the food at either. Which one do you trust? You already know the answer. And so did ancient rulers. When a pharaoh held public ceremonies, they weren't just religious events. They were engineered social proof. Tens of thousands of people gathered to witness the king commune with the gods. The sheer size of the crowd was the message. Everyone is here. Everyone believes. What kind of person would stay home? Roman emperors threw bread and circuses, free grain distributions and massive public games, not just to keep people fed and entertained, but to manufacture visible, undeniable consensus. If 80,000 people are cheering in the Colosseum, if the streets are full of people celebrating the emperor's generosity, dissent becomes socially invisible. You can think whatever you want in private, but in public the crowd has already decided. Social proof manipulation at this scale isn't just persuasion, it's the removal of permission to disagree. So why does this matter? Because now let's talk about the most powerful compliance tool ever invented, making the rules divine. The Code of Hammurabi, written around 1754 BCE in ancient Babylon, didn't just lay out laws. It opened with a stone carving of the king receiving the laws directly from the sun god Shamash. Message was not subtle. These aren't Hammurabi's rules. These are the god's rules. Hammurabi is just the delivery mechanism. Religious decrees work on a completely different psychological level than ordinary authority. If someone with power tells you to do something, you might comply but still harbor resentment. But if you believe a divine force is behind the command, compliance comes with something far more powerful: moral conviction. You're not just following orders, you're doing what's right. This is why ancient rulers across every civilization, Egypt, Babylon, Rome, the early Christian church, invested so heavily in religious infrastructure. Temples weren't just houses of worship, they were compliance engines. The priests who ran them were, functionally, the ancient world's version of a public relations department. But here's where things get interesting. Here's something no history textbook ever told me. Ancient rulers were masters of manufactured scarcity. Consider how grain storage worked in ancient Egypt. The state controlled the granaries. During a good harvest, they didn't let the surplus flow freely. They stored it, controlled it, and when drought came, who had the grain? The state. Who sided it? The pharaoh. This is scarcity as a compliance tool. Your survival depends on access, and access depends on loyalty. You don't even have to threaten people directly. Just control the resource and obedience follows naturally. The Roman government ran a similar system with the grain dole in the city of Rome. Hundreds of thousands of citizens received subsidized or free grain, but only as long as the system approved of their behavior. Withdraw the dole and watch what happens to civil disobedience. Modern compliance psychology recognizes scarcity as one of the most powerful behavioral drivers that exists. We want what is rare. We obey what controls what is rare. The ancient world didn't know the science, but they knew the result. And this is where most people make a mistake. Before psychology had a name, ancient rulers understood one thing viscerally. If you can make people feel small, they will act small. Stand at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza and look up. It is 481 feet tall. For nearly 4,000 years it was the tallest structure on Earth. An average Egyptian farmer, looking at that structure, did not think, impressive engineering project. They thought, whatever built this cannot be questioned. This is intentional. The scale wasn't about vanity, it was about psychological recalibration. When the institutions around you dwarf everything human-sized, your instinct to comply gets physically reinforced. You feel your smallness. You feel the system's enormity. The gap between me and power stops feeling like something that could ever be closed. The Romans built their own version of this. The Pantheon, with its perfect concrete dome. The Colosseum, seating 80,000 people. The roads and aqueducts stretching across continents. Each structure was saying the same thing without words. This is permanent. We are inevitable. Resistance is not just dangerous, it's absurd. Now this next part might surprise you. At this point you might be thinking, okay, this is interesting history, but what does it have to do with me? In the present, in the modern world, everything. Every authority structure that exists today uses the same playbook: repetition, social proof, scarcity, the framing of rules as moral absolutes rather than human choices. The architecture of institutions designed to make you feel small. The manufactured consensus of crowds that makes disagreement feel lonely and strange. The difference between ancient propaganda and modern influence isn't the mechanism, it's the speed and scale. The pharaoh's image appeared on temple walls in a dozen cities. Today, a single message can appear on 3 billion screens within hours. The psychological lever is identical, the reach is incomparably larger. Knowing this doesn't make you immune. That's the uncomfortable truth about ancient mind control techniques. Understanding how social proof manipulation works doesn't stop it from working on you. But it does give you a half-second pause. A moment where you can ask, am I following this because I genuinely agree, or because I'm surrounded by people who do? That half-second is everything. So why does this matter? Because for all of their sophistication, every ancient power structure had a fatal weakness, and it wasn't armies. It wasn't internal corruption, though that helped bring plenty of empires down. It was information. Every compliance system built on manufactured consensus, on repetition of a single narrative, on religious decrees that can't be questioned. Every single one of them became fragile the moment a competing story entered the room. When people could compare notes. When travelers from other cities shared what they'd seen. When someone wrote something down that the rulers hadn't approved. Ramesses carved his victory at Kadesh onto temple walls. But the Hittite, the other side of that battle, had their own words. The moment two versions of reality exist, the spell starts to crack. This is why every empire in history has eventually tried to control information. It's why the printing press terrified European monarchies. It's why any power structure that relies on compliance psychology is, in the long run, fighting a losing battle against the human instinct to question. You have more access to competing narratives right now than any human being in the history of civilization. That is an extraordinary thing, and it means the most powerful thing you can do, the thing Ramesses and Augustus and every ruler since has feared most, is simply decide to look for a second source. The oldest trick in the world is still working because most people never learned it had a name, and now you know it, from the stone carvings of Ramesses, all the way to the algorithm recommending your next video. That question I asked at the beginning, why are you so easy to control without realizing it? The answer is, because the people who wanted to control you have had 3,000 years of practice. If this flipped something in your brain, the way it flipped something in mine when I first went down this rabbit hole, you are going to want to watch this next video, because it goes even deeper into how these same psychological triggers work in the systems around you right now. Click that one, and I'll see you there.